Hello and welcome back to the Villa Filler podcast. It's another late night edition. I'm here as always with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, how you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. It's never normally good when we do these late night editions, is it? Because once you hear these dulcet tones, the rooms are looking a little more dim. It's just this sort of candid moonlight that illuminates the pretty, disenfranchised faces of both you and I at the moment. It usually means that we've had a bad result. We've contemplated squeezing out a pod after kickoff. Something's got in the way, and we thought, we'll just get one in later. But what it allows for is the emotions to sort of settle a little bit more. Rationale starts to kick in and replace the initial emotional reaction. And we tend to get some better takes as a result. So after a bad result, maybe recording later on is never such a bad thing.
Absolutely, mate. Calm takes are what I think the Villa Filler is all about. You guys know what we're about. And just for reference, I have the highlights up as well. As this is unfortunately not a game I was able to watch live. So, that's another reason why we are here doing this a little bit later than we usually would. But Dan, I mean, talk me through this, right? Because I've seen extended highlights, I've seen the goals, I've seen this. You were sat there full 90 minutes, unfortunately, for yourself, mate. And I mean, from what I'm gathering, from what I'm reading, from what I'm seeing, first half, really well disciplined from Villa. We'll get onto the Bertrand Traoré goal a bit later on, but I think there was plenty to be happy about with the first 45 minutes of football, wasn't there, Dan?
Yeah, well, I think the first half as a whole, to be honest with you, I think we rode our luck at points. They were particularly dangerous down that left-hand side. It was one of the sort of undertones of this game. I was really interested to see who shone the most out of Matt Targett and Luke Shaw in that sort of, both are sort of gunning for that final left-back spot at the Euros. Both have got a real point to prove in these last few games of the season before Southgate picks that squad. And so that was one of the little, the storylines that I was going to keep an eye on throughout the game. But in the first half, there's no doubt that Luke Shaw won that little personal battle. Everything that was good that United did came down that left-hand side. And they caused real problems at points. Emi had to make a few saves. Nothing too last-ditch, nothing too full stretch. But, United tested us. But that was always going to be the case. You know what I mean, mate? Like, we were never going to shut out United without a shot on target for this 90 minutes. We know if we were going to get a result against United, considering our form against that team in particular, which is, I'm sure, is something that we'll touch on. We needed to ride our luck at points, and Villa did. But what was important is that, well, I was about to say we took our chances when they came along, but Bertie, it's not even a chance. It's not even a half chance, really. I mean, how he fashions that into the top corner is unbelievable. But he's got that in the locker, mate. We've seen him do that. Reminded me of the game against Crystal Palace on Boxing Day, where he rattled that one in off the underside of the bar. There's been sort of several games where he's done that and produced these moments of quality out of nowhere. And going in 1-0 up, we felt pretty good value for that, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a shot in the dark, isn't it? But it's them kind of moments of magic that really matter. And Bertrand Traore's second goal against Manchester United this season now, let's not forget he scored in the reverse fixture at Old Trafford as well, Dan. Again, he's a player. We don't rep schmucks on this podcast, Dan, do we? Bertrand Traore, we've said it from the start. You can see him behind me just there. Bertrand Traore, he is the Donny. Consistency is, of course, an issue that plagues him. But I mean, that finish, and from what I've seen and from what I've heard, Dan, certainly from the commentary and the punditry, they were talking about how it was poor defending from Manchester United, which it just completely baffles me, because I think in the build-up to this, and I think it's important again that we do highlight this, given some of the completely unjust social media criticism of Douglas Luiz and John McGinn in recent weeks, even as recent as today, both do really well linking up, winning the ball back, John McGinn. And Bertrand, just again, the word that we always use with Bertrand Traore, Dan, is nonchalant. He is so nonchalant, and how he receives the ball and just flicks it out of his feet like that to spin Lindelof, and Henderson has no chance. It's a fantastic goal, and it's one of them ones again where I think often, Dan, we can and we do criticise Villa for not actually taking shots. Like, we create chances, but you don't see many players line up outside the box. Just have a pot shot. Anwar has been the guy recently who's done that, and he proved against Everton, if you take your chances, you're going to score eventually. And I mean, again, I don't have the individual XG for that one, but I'm sure Bertrand defied XG by a monumental number for that one, Dan. And it give Villa, as soon as you see Villa go 1-0 up, Dan, as soon as, it was a good first half performance. you can't help but feel like that doubt that always sets in when Villa go 1-0 up, especially against the big teams, especially against teams in Manchester, because it only happened a few weeks ago, Dan, didn't it? It almost seemed inevitable, and of course we can say that with hindsight. But refereeing decisions go against Villa, momentum swings, they get sucker punched. Villa don't really do themselves many favours as well, giving away a penalty. It really was the cliche, game of two halves, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And I think that's where a lot of the frustration comes from. Not that I condone the sort of abuse that's being dished out on social media, but that's Villa, some pretty poor sections of the Villa fan base, unfortunately, and that's the way that this season has shown that this fan base operates, and it's terrible. But their frustration stem from the fact that we know United do this. That's United's 10th comeback win of the season. They lead the league in points collected after going behind by a long, long way. We know that United are the comeback specialists, and that's not just Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's Man United. That's just Man United in general. Pick any point in the history. They are the guys that, think Fergie time, they get it done in the second half. And when you add that to, you talk about that doubt, mate, and what the Villa players are trying to overturn in that, United are now unbeaten in their last 22 games at Villa Park. That's the longest unbeaten away run one side has had against another in English top flight history. Villa have just won once in their last 45 Premier League meetings with Man United, which is a terrible, terrible statistic. But this is the doubt that's creeping in, mate, when you are aware of these hoodoos that as soon as they get one, I mean, look, Douglas Luiz, he'll know more than anyone. You see it in his face when he commits the foul. You see it in Ezri Konsa's face when, he's sort of lambasting him after he does it. It's a stupid challenge. He doesn't need to make it. It's a silly penalty to give away. Yes, it's probably a little bit soft, but, if you touch Paul Pogba in that situation in the penalty box when he's 1-0 down, he's going to go down like a sack of shit. He's entitled to, he's going to get the penalty. And then, Bruno steps up and does it again. That's the third game in a row he scored a penalty against us. And it runs like clockwork, to be honest with you, mate. There's some pretty crazy stats that have come out of that penalty, though. So United have now won a game against Villa with a penalty every time they've played us since 2016. But what's even worse is the last time Villa had a penalty against Manchester United was in the 2010 League Cup final. And that wasn't even a good decision because Vidic got the yellow. So, all round, it's just a joke.
That's poor, man. But listen, on Douglas Luiz, he posted on Instagram, I'm a passionate player for the club and I never wanted to commit a penalty like this. And I ended up hurting the team and the result. Now, who doesn't understand me? Fuck you. With many errors, I'm learning. And that's the thing as well, man. I think it's, we absolutely do not condone any sort of social media abuse. Constructive criticism, you're allowed to criticize players. That this isn't me or Dan, saying that is not allowed, because if a player isn't performing and if a player does what Douglas Luiz does, it's not good. But I think again, I don't want to sound like I'm making excuses for this, Dan, but it's much easier to kind of when you're at the game, Dan, you're sat in your seat in the Trinity, Dan, and we're frauds. We're called Heart of the Holte, and we sit in the Trinity. I know, allow it, right? Allow it.
Don't tell him.
But you see Douglas Luiz make that. You get all irate. You shout a little bit in the ground, whatever. But then by the time you've walked out of the game afterwards, Dan, you go, that was a bit naff, weren't it? Sometimes you just need to vent, and it's unfortunate that people go to social media, people are like atting him in abuse, which is just completely just awful, and it's horrible to see. Fair play to you for standing up for yourself, Dougie. And I think just to kind of break down the play, Dan, that kind of led to this penalty, it's actually quite out of character, because one thing you see from a freeze frame from when I believe it is Wan-Bissaka who plays the ball to Pogba. He plays a nice little slide ball past Matt Target that Pogba runs into the box. Douglas Luiz has to track him instantly. The first thing you notice is Matt Target is not in line with his defence, which allows that ball to be played in. Anwar El Ghazi, poor marking from him as well. Douglas tracks the man very well. He does what he has to do. As well, Mings is initially quite deep, and he's in a good position to actually come across for when Pogba's actually trying to kind of come and cut inside here. But Luiz makes Pogba's decision so much easier for him. He knows exactly what he's going to do as soon as he comes inside. Douglas is rash to give away the penalty again at Old Trafford before, which was certainly not a penalty. I mean, this one you can't really argue with. But it's frustrating because it's. I understand you're going to get carved open with a little slide draw pass like that every now and then. And again, not criticising Matt Targett, had a fantastic game by all accounts himself. But it's these little, it's an individual moment of frustration. I think if you think about it, Dan, there's probably only been 4 performances out of the whole season where you can go, that's a disgrace. That was a stinking performance. Everybody has let the team down here. I think Leeds at home comes to mind. Stoke in the cup comes to mind. There's a handful of performances like that. It's more often than not, Dan, we're coming on this podcast and we're going, this is really annoying because we've been undone by an individual error. So that's how you know that Villa aren't realistically too far off where they need to be. It's frustrating, but listen, again, on another, if we're trying to take positives, Dan, United have a triple game week in FPL. Everyone should have had Bruno captain. He's going to score the penalty. So he will be getting points for days. But after this, Dan, Cavani puts us to the sword. And he's someone who I highlighted in the preview. And again, it's that right-hand side again, which kind of, we highlighted earlier in the preview. That's where they're dangerous and they can cause you problems. In fact, I'm jumping ahead here. I'm going on Cavani. The Mason Greenwood goal is again phenomenal, Dan, isn't it? I mean, we'll talk about that because I think again you can criticise Tyrone Mings here for overcommitting, which is again a bit of a trend, really. No Ty slander on this podcast. Criticism, yeah. Slander, absolutely not. Thankfully, I've not seen too much of it, but. Mason Greenwood within the 18-yard box, mate, you would back your mortgage that kid is scoring, wouldn't you? He is absolutely clinical.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's one of those where it showed the difference in quality in those situations. Ultimately, I mean, when you're 2-1, you're already 2-1 up, and they're bringing on Edinson Cavani, and he's finally shown in these last sort of 7 or 8 games now where he's got a similar amount of goals. What just an incredible player Edinson Cavani is. Absolutely phenomenal. And when you add into the likes of Mason Greenwoods and Rashfords and the like, it's a serious problem, and that showed in the penalty area. I think Emi will be disappointed because he's such a good goalkeeper to be beaten at his near post like that. I think he's anticipating that Greenwood is going to go far post, and I think you can sort of see a little shift in the body weight before he makes that sort of dive down to his left. I don't think he was really expecting to do that, but look, I'm not in the business of pointing fingers, mate. I think it's a collective effort ultimately because we never looked up to it in the second half. You can look at Luiz for the penalty, Mings with that sort of where Greenwood sort of just rolls in. You've got Emi with that last save. That you were talking about Matt Targett there. There are these little individual moments, but the game ultimately was not won or lost. We had, when it was 1-1, we still had a point to play for. When it was 2-1, we still had plenty of time to come back into that game, perhaps get an equaliser. There are so many other instances in that game where, as a unit, I don't think we were up to it in the second half. You talked about the cliche earlier, mate, of a game of 2 halves, and it really applies today. I think, sure, we can point fingers. Luiz is probably going to get the most of them today, and it's his birthday as well, I believe. So
exactly, man.
I hope
Wish him
you
happy
still have
birthday.
a happy birthday, Doug. You're still a favourite of the Villa fella. Don't worry about it. But no, the Villa team as a collective, I think we have to look at the management again because it's just a complete collapse in the second half. I think as a team, they'll look at this, they'll learn from it. That's the process, mate, and we'll go again.
Is that an overreaction, Dan? Because I mean, let's be real, Dan. As you say, I think realistically, before this game, do you have Villa going 1-0 up as quick as they did? Do you have Villa actually? Because let's be real, Dan. For 45 minutes, Villa were in this game. Did we really expect that? Is there too much criticism? Not that I've seen much of it, but can we place too much criticism on Smith, on the management of this game? I think if you're looking at kind of the decisions that are made, that kind of cost Villa, aren't really kind of inflicted on, by Dean or by the changes. I think we're still kind of limited. Later, we saw Keenan Van Nistelrooy and Wesley come on again, 2 favourites of the podcast. But I mean, at this stage, we're still kind of, what do you do? How do you beat Manchester United when the momentum's going their way? We saw it last season, Dan. the penalty completely changes the game. You sucker punched us. Villa were competing in that game up until that moment. Is it just a case of, it was one of them ones, it's a frustrating one, but you just kind of take it on the chin, or what, Dan? Because not that I've seen criticism of Dean, but it just kind of presents that kind of discussion, doesn't it?
No, absolutely, mate. But I think naturally, I think that, look, no one expected Villa to win this game. This, United team was seriously picking up form now. I mean, I was a doubter when Ali came into charge and was for a long, long time. You can't doubt what he's producing with this Man United team. They're by far and away the best, the second best team in this league. But I think ultimately, when you're leading at halftime, when you're aware of what Man United do, I think there has to be a plan. Ultimately, when you're aware that Man United, more likely than not, given that record that I was talking about earlier, are going to come back into a game, how we counteract that. But look, it's as you say, mate. I'm not pinning. It's a collective thing that I think when the heads dropped and that doubt came in, mate, it's having the mental strength to pick yourself back up and go again, play that 0-0 scoreline that we all did in Sunday League, and get yourself back into it. But this United had a far more to play for in that game than Villa did. It was on them to not let City win the league, which is obviously something they don't want on their hands. And I think that's perhaps what prevailed in the second half. But no, I mean, on the whole, we took it to them well in the first half, and I think that's what Villa fans need to take from this.
Absolutely, man. And I want to circle back to your point on Edinson Cavani, because his goal, you have to just admire. You talk about world-class centre-forwards play, the way he kind of angles his run from Matty Cash into the box. Wonderful finish. And, since the XG stats are recorded here on FB Ref, Edinson Cavani has consistently overperformed his XG. He's a goal machine. And I remember watching him come up at Palermo, at Napoli in the early days. It always felt like he was a striker that, I think, with this sort of trajectory that the Premier League and English football kind of went on, during the 2010s, it almost felt unlikely that we'd ever see him in the Premier League, Dan, didn't it? Because it almost felt like, I don't know, the game is just played at a different pace. He's, of course, a world-class finisher, a world-class striker, in my opinion. But, you look at certain players when they come to the Premier League, don't always make that transition as seamlessly as someone like Cavani has. I mean, the only season he hasn't outperformed his XG was his final season at Paris Saint-Germain. Only played 14 games. He scored 4 goals, had an XG of 7.6, but he was injured for a lot of the time, didn't play a lot as well, obviously because there was a very sort of public situation whereby he was running down his contract, and there was a general decision that he wasn't really going to play as much, so he had a lot of time on the bench as well. But he's got an XG so far at 6.6 this season. He scored 8 goals for Manchester United in all comps, and it was a wonderful goal. You just kind of have to take your hat off. I don't really think there's much the defense can really do about that one, is there, Dan? It's a world-class finish, and it hurts to see that. But I think as well, it's the ball that's teed in by Rashford as well, man. Supplying the hungry kids, and he's supplying the hungry strikers as well.
Meat Meals always delivers, bro. You can count on that. You're absolutely right. Edison's you never want to see him do it against Villa, but I'm always happy when United. Falcao did it. Falcao was a player that I never thought we were going to see in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for him, he just didn't cut it. And Cavani, very similar in a lot of ways to Radamel. So I'm happy to see that Edison's backing that up, and you always want to see the best do it in the Premier League. And that was nice, mate. And he had a nice moment with Emmy after the game as well. The sort of two of them had a nice chat on the pitch as well. Always nice, I imagine, for Emmy to have some Spanish-speaking friends to have a conversation, because there aren't many Spanish speakers in Birmingham, I can't imagine. So that's nice for him.
Donde está la biblioteca? Come on, Emmy, come on the podcast. We'll talk in Spanish. As well, I mean, Dan, just to kind of add insult to injury, really, that second yellow card from Ollie Watkins, absolute scandal. And I know that you don't like to talk too much about refereeing decisions, Dan, and I know I always make you, but Ollie Watkins is now no longer going to be afforded the chance to have played every single minute of Premier League football this season. That he was in a club of 5 people this morning, I think, before the game, and I think Thomas Souček was in it Sam Teague tweeted it, so I know you would have seen it, Dan. I can't remember off the top of my head right now. But Ollie's no longer on that list. That's disappointing. It's a scandalous decision. And from what I was reading as well, people were thinking at the time, oh, we're getting a penalty as soon as the whistle's blown. And then to kind of see that, the yellow card come out, we were dealt with that. It's just, it's frustrating, man. But I guess, again, just trying to take the positives from this, Dan. Surely, and I mean surely, because if he doesn't, then I don't know what we'll do, Dan. I think this podcast will explode. Keenan Davis starts next week.
Yeah, mate, there was that sort of last 10 minutes where Villa went 4-4-2 and we had Watkins on the wing and Keenan and Wesley up front. And I'm not sure it really worked very well. I mean, we conceded, but it was, and excuse my French, fucking mental. I loved it. I don't care what the score is. We can lose 5-0. I just need to see that 4-4-2 again because it was absolutely batshit. Having Keenan and Wesley, come on, man. It's like these two forces of nature just collide. It's like, honestly, it's like Godzilla versus Kong. Like, it's like these two huge entities that you never thought would play on the same pitch together. But here they are, and they're just both battering rams. Every single header, that like flying into it. It was mental. So yeah, 100%. Go 4-4-2. We lose 4-0. Who the care? It's for the vibes, man. We need that. We've got nothing to play for. Just rock with it. See what that front two can do. Because if nothing, it was great entertainment, mate.
Mate, I'm sure that's something that you will cover in your preview, Dan. As that game is on Thursday. Again, you're probably going to be in for a late night Villa filler, as I may be at that game as well. So hopefully, I'll be able to see Keenan Davis start a Premier League game. That would be absolutely wonderful. Fingers crossed. But listen, guys, thank you for sticking with us tonight. It's been a late one. I know you guys don't like listening when we lose, but again, I just like to reiterate the point I made in the preview. Like 6,500 views on that Everton one, which is absolutely mental. So thank you to everybody who's watched that. Thank you to everyone who's watched the preview. Just everyone who's been on the channel. You guys who are watching this one as well. You're the real MVPs. I know it's difficult to watch. But it's nice. The dust has settled. It's now 9:45 as we're wrapping this up now. So we've had plenty of time to kind of mull on our thoughts and feelings on that game and deliver the calm takes to you guys. So Dan, is there any final words from yourself, mate, before we wrap this up?
No, just echoing that sentiment, mate. Like, it was great for the Villa to get a win. Seeing everyone come back to the podcast that rightly haven't really felt like listening in recent months. So it was great to see you guys again. But you guys that are back after the defeat, we know you love you more than most. So thanks as always for the support. And you'll get a preview off me early to mid next week.
Fantastic. So as I say, if you guys enjoyed, hit the like button, comment your thoughts below, let us know your man of the match, and subscribe for more content. Up the Villa.